most projects fail, statistically speaking. Most projects fail, which is such a shame. It just impacts so many people when projects fail, and never in a good way. And the root cause is the people.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, it is an honor to welcome our guests. I know that they're coming with a couple of things very expensive. Time. 24 hours has been offered to everyone. Dawn is here to spend some of it here with us, and we want to honor her and thanking her for coming and spending that commodity, because once it's spent, it is spent. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator. Gave her wisdom, knowledge, insights, all of those things. It created her. And we want to be able to honor her and thank her for allowing us access to that, to see her vulnerability and to gain wisdom, insight, so that you and I can become better human spirits living here on this planet towards each other. Thank you so much, Pon, for coming to Thread.
Thank you for having me, Ken. I'm so excited about this conversation.
I am too. Like I said, I've been reading, studying, looking, all kinds of stuff for about a week and a half now. So welcome to Threads of Alignment. Now, this is the question that I usually toss to everyone because it gives them, again, I'm from corporate America. We call it our 30-second elevator speech, as they say. And it is, in some courses, we refer to it as our mission statement. But I look at it as your ability to crystallize your assignment that you have located as a result of your journey. The question is, how do you serve mankind?
Such an amazing question. I've worked really hard to figure this one out.
You
And at
cheated.
this point, it's called study. But at this point in my life, I would say right now, my mission really is in helping people understand first that most projects fail, and second, that it doesn't have to be this way. So I try to make learning how to succeed in projects fun and easy, which is very challenging.
Yeah, life is a project, you know. I can have you come and deal with my project because, I've been dealing with this for a couple of years, putting this project together. One of the things that we talk about here at Threads of Enlightenment, if you want us to go back, I call it the beginning of our beginnings. And it is a space by which we first visit as we are moving through life. There's a couple of locations that we stop by for a few times, a few years. The family is that first unit, and we hang out there for maybe about 18 years. It's just a blink, as they say. And we have other spaces that we move through as we are, quote unquote, becoming independent or growing up, if you will. But this first location is the family. We call it that. But we're going to learn a couple of things there. Communication skills is learned there. Behavior, beliefs are developed there. We're going to learn about mindset, limiting mindset versus those mindsets for your belief as to the impossible, believing the impossible. But mainly this is where we encounter, if you will, some of those beautiful things we call trauma. And as a result, as we learn all these things in this mixture right there in this family, we start developing our perception to make decisions. What was your family unit?
Well, the beginning was rough in my family. So my parents, I was an accident. My dad says no, but I know better that, I was an accident. Many of us are. And they came together and they got married. And in fact, my grandmother was holding me at the wedding, and the person who was marrying them, the reverend, said, "Oh, what a beautiful baby. Whose baby is it?" And she said, "The bride and groom's." And so there you have it. So it was a little rocky start there. And then I was actually in an interview, much like this, and somebody said, "Well, gee, how did you end up in project management? You have a math degree. I mean, was there anything in your childhood that led you here?" And I had this flashback.
Yeah.
For the first time ever, I had this flashback of little me at 2 years old on the floor of our empty living room, organizing my storybooks from small to big. So in my mind's eye, I know it was a real flashback because I can see my chubby little toddler hands holding the books, and I could feel the seriousness by which I was taking this task I had
Emotion.
invented for myself. And so you might wonder, why was I on the floor of an empty living room? And the reason is because my biological mother left. She left us with nothing, just me and my stuff. So my father, when he came home from working hard on the railroad that day as a young man, he came home to an empty home with a toddler. And I can't imagine the shock that he must have felt to that. And this organizing of the books is where I realized that turning order out of the chaos is really some of my magic that I bring to my work. And it's the part that I love most about projects, the part in the beginning where it's really messy and you need to organize it and figure out how are we going to move forward to get to the goal that we have here.
It's amazing. I guess, like I mentioned to you, those threads that I talk about that are walking with us as we are going through life. And one of the reasons why I ask that question to everyone, Dawn, is because we usually identify those threads and little glimpses of them, and we see how we are moving through life. Here's this young girl. You have the vision, the recollection as her putting order to chaos, if you will, in her mind. In her little way, she's putting that together. This particular traumatic situation, of course, we know dad has to deal with this also, but this impact, is going to be an imprint on this young girl. As she's moving through life, how did that impact? Because it will manifest as she is living and moving through. How did it impact that little girl's being? How did she manage that?
Yeah, there was a lot to that. One of the things that I did was I became a person who didn't want to disappoint my father or become any kind of burden to him. And so I became a perfectionist and a people pleaser, and I wanted to be a good girl. I needed to be a good girl, and I needed to be the opposite of my mother. So there was a lot there that really drove me both ways toward my father. And we have an amazing relationship. And I'm so grateful every single day that I got him as my dad. And he so stepped up to the plate and taught me the value of hard work and doing the right thing and so much about a father's love that's strong and there. He was there. He was just there, you know? And so as I move through life, as I've gotten older, I've noticed that this level of trying to be a good girl and the perfectionism and the striving and the achieving and well, if I get good grades, when I was younger, if I get good grades, if I get straight A's, then they'll love me. If I do a good job at work and I work late and I work later than everybody else, and I know that everybody's that's on the cleaning staff's names because I'm there all the time at night, then then I will be seen then I will be seen and I won't be abandoned again. And it has been quite a journey, and it still once in a while creeps up on me, Ken. Some of these remnants from
Yeah, and
all
it'll
this.
always be there, Dawn. It is there to help us go deeper. We refer to that occasion as the onion layers, as we are unpacking those layers. And sometimes we deal with a situation and we're like, it shows up, and then you're like, I thought I dealt with this. And then it's like, no, you just, that was one layer. And the reason, again, I ask these questions because now we're beginning to get some deep insight as to the psyche of this young woman as she is now impacted by this trauma. She is now going to compensate, which we do, and we call that particular period of our life. This is our coping mechanism. This is how we cope with the trauma. So we usually build these beautiful stories in our minds to compensate for that. And in this compensation, we create these beautiful stories that later on in life we have to dismantle because we see that it can only serve us to a certain point and it is now beginning to erode our personality. As you're moving through, and you're growing up this young woman, the people pleaser and all those different things. I know about that space because I've been there. And I can tell you are a firstborn because I was at my parents' wedding as well. So, so I understand, girl. And as you're moving through your life and you're now in another space that where understanding is much more aware of, if you will, high school. What was your communication skills with those in that arena of high school? How did you manage being this perfectionist, being this people pleaser? How did she manage these roles of compensation and our communication skills with others?
Well, my father, being a railroader, was not great with communication. He communicated through action. So, and he was a man of few words. And when he dropped some wisdom, it was like one sentence and you had to think about it for 24 hours.
Yeah.
So, but I'm a girl, and so there's a lot of chattiness that happens. And I found myself gravitating to people who I could have real conversations with, that I could trust. And so I had very few friends. I had many, many acquaintances, but I had very few real friends. And to this day, that is my choice. And I really appreciate the people who like to talk about ideas and big thinking, and so
Yeah.
I even then gravitated to those people. And I also found my voice in writing in English class. So in English class, I was encouraged to write stories. And the stories that I wrote were, some of it, of course, you write at first what you know. And I found, when I was cleaning out my parents' house, I found some of what I had written as a teenager. And let me tell you how impressed I was as an adult at the maturity of the teenage self I had. I had written this, I have to just tell you this because I was so shocked. I had written this story called this poem called My Love Sonnet, and it was published actually when it won a contest and it was published. And I refound this, and it's in iambic pentameter, which is very hard to write, and it is very jaded. So my love sonnet, I can only imagine the panelists, because I've been on a panel for things, later, but I can only
Yes.
imagine the panelists reading this are like, oh, here we go, teenage girl, my love sonnet, and then going, what's happened to this kid? It's completely shocking how jaded this is, this poem. So I tried to express myself through athleticism and through writing mostly when I was a kid.
That is beautiful. That sets the stage for some wonderful relationships.
Yes,
So here's
sir.
this
That is truth.
this girl again, because again, the impact of it, the writing, jadedness of the individual that you'd mentioned previously that she was seeking validation from others and this young girl and so forth. And that's what we all do. We're looking for validation for actions. And that part of the journey is to teach us that I don't need validation from anyone. I am self. I am, and that's enough for validation. And anything outside will allow you to be used if you don't understand that you are an I am. As you're moving through and you're looking towards college with your as you're heading there to that next phase of life, and this is she's becoming a young woman, and we are deciding this college and so forth. What was your reasoning behind the field of study did you pick? Why did you pick?
Wow. Well, so I mentioned the English. So at high school graduation, I was surprised with the English award. So I thought I should go to college for English. I must be good at this. This must be my thing. And so I took the college entrance exams. And so I didn't get to tell you that my father met this amazing woman, and she became my mother. So I have a real mother now, not by blood, but by
Yes.
choice. So she and I are sitting in front of this college entrance exam reviewer, and he says, "So, you had really high math scores." And we looked at each other and said, "Do you have the right file, sir?" He said, "Yeah, Don Mahan, right? Yep, that's me. I can't be too many of those." And so he said, "Well, you have a mathematics degree. You have a math future if you want it here." And I said, "Well, what would I do with math? I don't want to be a teacher." And he said, "Have you heard about the field of actuary? Have you heard about being an actuary?" I said, "What is that?" And he said, "Well, it's a business person that does math and they make a lot of money." I said, "What is that last part there?" Because we didn't have a lot of money. And I was like, "Boy,
Yeah.
I'd really like to try that life on. That sounds fun. Let me
Yeah.
do that." So I ended up getting a mathematics degree and attempting to be an actuary. I decided that wasn't the life for me. But yeah, I thought, wow, well, that's interesting because he said English majors are a dime a dozen. Don't do that. You have the skills to be able to do this. And it turns out math was my most difficult subject in high school, the most difficult. And that is what I tackled as my degree. And I got a business minor as well. And let me tell you, the liberal arts classes saved me. So
It saved a
they
lot of people,
totally
didn't
saved
it?
me.
That's another story, girl. But liberal arts saved a lot of people. Yeah.
Huh.
So here you are. You had a adventure, but those principles, I tell people, nothing that you do in life would ever be wasted. Nothing. I don't care if you're a street sweeper. Everything in life will be used. There are principles all day, every day, in everything that we do.
Yes.
Don't ever, wherever you're working right now, don't allow yourself to be disenchanted. Learn to be wise and contain yourself. You're just squatting for a moment. That's all you're doing. Learn principles there, but keep your dreams and keep moving. Don't allow it to destroy you and cause you pain. Learn, become a student in any and everything that you're doing. So here you are. You went to school, got your degree, and you're all out. Talk to me when you graduated. And, you got your liberal arts that saved you. Once you graduated, you stand on the stage, you got this piece of paper, and we're moving into that other phase of our life. I love we're all living the program. We're all living, this is the program that they tell us we got to deal with. And then you got
Hmm.
to get your husband, your wife picket fence, your car, and your 2-week vacation, and then you die. Here you're moving through, Dawn, and you got your PIP, you got your degree, and you're looking at professional work now. What did you do?
What did I do? Looked at my student loans and said, "Girl, you better make some money." And of course, my parents couldn't really help me with those, which is no problem. I didn't expect it. And so over the course of some trials and tribulations, I ended up finding myself in information technology in
Uh-huh.
1997. So I was one of the heroes and sheroes who saved the world from the year 2000 problem, Ken.
I remember that situation. We partied hard.
Yes, yes, yes. It was so IT was they hired me only because in some previous jobs, so as a baby actuary and then a baby biostatistician, I had used some weird technologies and I had learned to teach others how to use these technologies because I there is a teacher inside me somewhere and I that kind of came out in some of these roles. And so when I interviewed they saw some of these kind of weird technologies that I had used and said, "You'll do." Because at the time, they were like, anybody that basically can spell COBOL can be a programmer.
Yeah.
And I was the only woman in my cohort that started at that time at this IT technology company, which was no problem because growing up, I was so close to my father and men had been very good to me, my father, my grandfathers, and I never really thought about it that I was the only woman in the room until later when somebody told me, "Well, you were the only woman in the room." And I said, "Oh, yes, I was." And then, of course, in technology in the late 90s onward, that was often the case. But fortunately, I had played sports and I found meant to be very, very good to me and helping me get through my career, giving me opportunities. They saw something in me, and I'm just really so grateful for all of that and all of that help that I got along the way, and mostly
So
from
here's
men.
this project manager, if you would. You're there, and again, you're a perfect example of when you're learning, when you're doing odd jobs, as they say, it will be used. Whatever knowledge you have, and that's what I tell people, just hang in there, you'll be okay.
Mhm,
As you are moving and you're getting the validation, if you will, from the male world, telling you you got it, girl, you're okay, you're hanging in there, you're with us, we're with you. And
mhm.
as you're moving through that space, talk to me as to what was happening to this woman in the midst of all of that. What was her downtime, the times when she is by herself, no one is around? What was that conversation she was having with her? Because I know that sometimes around that time, they begin to be this little thumping, just a little thumping in our, in our inner being. It's like, this is not where I belong, but it's in there, and we don't know what that is or anything about it, but it's there. Talk to me as to you. How was Dawn hanging out with the boys, getting her life together, doing well professionally? But I want to know what was happening with her when there is no one but just herself.
Well, I had focused so much on work that I didn't feel like there was a lot of that time, and in fact, when I had first started that company, I was still working another job on the side, and just to do something productive and make a little extra money and so forth, and, I think what was happening came out actually in a professional annual review with one of my bosses, who was, of course, a man, and he had a daughter that was about my age, it turns out, and he said, "I decided I was going to treat you like I would want my daughter to be treated." And this had been a theme a little bit, and so he said, "We're gonna have a conversation that I don't want you to worry about this professionally. This is me and you talking." And I trusted him. And I
Mhm.
said, "Okay, well, what's that?" And he said, "I want to know what you really want to be doing.
Yeah.
What do you really want to be doing?" And I said, my grandfather was an entrepreneur, and I just have this burning sense that I'm supposed to start something. I don't know what. But I have this sense that I'm supposed to not be here eventually, not now, but eventually, and do something different. And that's what I'm doing now. I mean, that was probably 10 to 15 years into the future that it really that it happened that way.
Yeah. There's that thumping, as I said. All those that are called to experience the self. It's an invitation. It's an invitation to all men, all women, anyone. But there are a few of us that are called, they said chosen, if you will, that are have an opportunity to go through their journey because there is a need that is on the other side, and the minds, some people say God, some people say the universe, had already picked you and said, this one here, this is the one we need. And because we can trust her to go through and to come out from the other side and not to abort it, because I've met some of those that have done that, and those people are losing their minds, if you will. As you were first, the questions again, this first time in your life, basically someone on the outside has sent in a probe within you. What do you really want to do? And
Hmm.
now that probe is going to sit in there, and which is a seed. The seed is planted, and now that seed will begin to, because anything that is planted will bud. So that seed was planted in you, and again, you will continue life just as usual. Talk to me as to when it began to crescendo. I tell people life is a bolero. It starts with the little drum, and then all of a sudden there's some crashing cymbals. You're losing your mind. Talk to me as
Yes.
to the bolero effect, if you will. Dawn, as you're moving through your life, and it is slowly that seed is beginning to germinate even more as you are moving through life. Things look good on the outside, profession is good, money good, but still that thing is there. Talk to me as to when you recognize the fact that you needed to go visit and talk to that thing.
It's so wild, and I love how you describe it, Ken. It's true. It's so true. It was true for me. What I found myself in, I feel like, before I knew more about how the universe operated, I thought my life was just a series of accidents, right? I found myself in IT because of the year 2000 problem. I found myself, at the next job because blah, blah, blah. Like there was always, it seemed like it just sort of my career meandered and it felt like accidents. Now I know what you're describing is true, that it was all meant to bring me here in this conversation with you eventually. And so, what happened, one of the accidents, as I used to see it,
Yeah.
was at a New Year's Eve party. Okay.
Mhm.
So, I'm at this New Year's Eve party with that my friends are hosting, a married couple, and the husband takes me aside and says, don't you dare tell one of your best friends, my wife, that I'm having this conversation at this New Year's party with you. And I said, what's up? And he said, so I heard in the news that your company is being bought out. Have you considered going out on your own? I said, what? He said, have you considered, because he said you have this magic around making project management easy for people and fun, and your style is there. It's very different. And I think you could be really successful at it. And he ran a training company, a professional training company. And so I trusted his judgment, and he's my friend. He's not going to steer me wrong. And I said, well, I'm really going to need a drink now, Steve. But he planted the seed. And in fact, at that time, that maybe I could do it. What if I could do it? And so I spoke to, over the course of the next 9 months, when our company was going through all the trials and tribulations of merging with this, being acquired by this other giant company, I had conversations, a lot of conversations with people like him and people like my old boss that had planted that seed many years ago, who I trusted. And I said, what do you think? And the big consensus from all of them was, you're a hard worker, you're gonna make it work. And that is something definitely my father taught me, was the power of hard work. I will outwork whatever it is. I might not be the smartest person or the most beautiful one, but I am gonna outwork it, right? And so they said, you're gonna outwork this. And I said, okay, I can feel that. And they said, you're young enough that you have plenty of runway. You can always go get another job if you need
Mhm.
to. We'd hire you back, no problem. But you also have enough experience behind you to bring some serious firepower to the table. And they said, and why? And so I thought, okay, here we go. Let's do it.
That's wonderful that you were able to have your team, your support team. And I tell people it is so important in life. I have very few friends, but they are my support team. If I come to them about anything, they are so um, truthful, and I love them for that. That they will tell me absolutely everything that is, nutty or whatever, but they will listen to me and they'll watch at me and they'll do the same. And when you have those, hold on tight because don't you ever let them go because they're there for a purpose. That is your team that will help you when there's crunch time, if you will. You took the leap of faith because that's what it takes. The job or the salary, I tell people, is one of the last things that you will have to do when you're about to walk into this faith life. You become an entrepreneur. The job recommends or resembles security and all these different things. The leap of faith is all kinds of stuff. There's that is waiting there. You have self-doubt. You have all of the different mindset that one has to overcome. So talk to us, Don, because this mindsets are going to start to show up in big ways. Imposter syndrome, all these wonderful terminologies that they use. You ain't got it. You're not smart enough. All of those things will come to less than. And you have to stand and speak to them. Talk to me as you're moving through and you're taking that leap of faith because it's not easy. These things, these movements, if you will challenge everything about you. You will be tested to see if you're really serious about what you're about to do or if you were just bullshitting. So talk to me as to those truths that started to manifest in your life as far as the standing that you have to do against the untruth, which is those mindset that says you don't have it. Talk to me about those the tools that you use to overcome the limiting mindset. What did that engagement look like in Dawn's life as she's taking this new challenge?
Well, I definitely felt all of those things at one time or another. And there were many times where, because I was still young, and yes, I had some runway, and I had, as a consultant, they say, it's basically dog years. You get at least twice the amount of experience in half the time.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of experience under me, and I felt confident in that. But there would still be these, let's say, older male executives who would look at me
The old
like
boys.
I was either their daughter or they wanted to date me. There was like those were the two choices for many of them, and neither were terribly comfortable. And I had to decide that it didn't matter, that I was just going to stand in my truth and be the person that I knew could bring value to their organizations. And that if I weren't quite their cup of tea, that's okay, that somebody would value me.
Don, let's talk. Let's rest here for a little while because we have many women out there that are. This is one of the walls, if you will, that they have to navigate through. As a woman now speaking to women, talk to
Mm.
them about that. What is the cost of doing what you did and the cost of not doing it? Make them aware of it, and within that awareness, offer your advice as to how to stand, if you will, because a lot of
Mm.
women are here and they're not sure, they want to give up, and they're coming against this old boys, if you will. What would be your advice to them, and what is it you would suggest to them?
Well, I love that. And since this time, I've done a lot of work in trying to help other women too. So I love it that you're asking me to do this. Thank you. I For women in that position, I feel like I just didn't know any better, but I also knew and I felt my father's voice in my head. So if you have somebody's voice that if you can't bring your own voice in, bring somebody else's voice in that you believe, that that you bring value, and that they would say to you, "Girl, you are valuable." And if they don't see it, then they're not for you and they don't deserve you. And that is where I had to get to. Now, in some cases, I don't know if this is the right answer or not, but in some cases, what I would do in these situations is I would phone a friend. And so there was a consultant that I had worked with, before when we had worked together in corporations, and he was an older guy. And he's fabulous, one of the best people I've ever worked with. And I would call him up and say, "Hey, will you work with me on this gig?" And he would say yes. And so
Yeah.
when the two of us were in the room, the dynamics would change. And so, and he always made it better. So it was never like I didn't want him there. I was only calling him because of these dynamics. He always made it better. And it was always the right choice. So I felt into that. And I enjoyed working with him so much that it was a bonus. But there were several times where the initial reason I called him were because of these dynamics. And I really wanted to do the gig because I knew that they needed me. And somebody on that crew had called me personally and said, "I really need your help." And I didn't want to disappoint them. So it's like there's there'll be this person that you really want to work with that calls you in, especially when you get that personal phone call and you have to figure out how to make it work. And for me, that was one of the ways that I made it work.
Yeah, that is a brilliant way to bring someone in on the from that angle that is around their age and stuff like that. It'll shut that down in a second, you know. And
Right.
if they would, you know, the thing that they would probably do is go to that individual, and usually those type of men that are strong in who they are will circle back and go, no, she's in charge. I'm here on the side. We're working together. And those boys will stop their madness. And men are usually like that. They'll stop their madness once they're put in their place or redirected, if you will. So here's this woman. She got her company. She's doing well. And you are now a big time, you know, big, my friend would call me, says, you're a big mahop. You're a big mahop now. And I want to head into the formation of your company, the product land, and how did you put it, how did that come to pass, if you will? Because usually those things, again, they are ideas, seeds that are deposited within self. And as time goes by, that seed now is going to demand birth, if you will. You're going to have to give birth to that thing. Talk to me as to how did that manifest and how did you begin to put it together? Because again, in my reading and studies, and I saw it is a big project and you're doing a lot with it. How did that come together?
So, another happy accident, as I used to
We
think it.
talk about these accidents.
It's so funny. That one, truly, I was standing in front of a conference room full of experienced people. And this company, their company had brought me in to help them understand how to do projects better. And they were great at operations, but they were really new to projects. And I was trying desperately to figure out a way to communicate to them that operations, the day job, the business as usual, the maintenance stuff is very different than projects. And I blurted it out, Ken. I blurted it out and said, so the world of projects is different. We should call it something different, like Project Land. And so I just blurted it out, right? And
Yeah.
so about a week later, I was going to visit the executive who hired us to come in and help. And I'm walking down the hall to her office, all up in my head, thinking about, what we're going to talk about. And I passed two of the gentlemen that were in class in this narrow hallway. And you're in your head, you're not really hearing what they're
Mm,
saying. But
yeah.
then I did overhear, like through the fog of my brain, this one sentence from one of them to the other came out, and he said, "Remember, man, it's Project Land. It's different." I was like, "Wait, what? What'd you just say?" And he said, "Yeah, that really stuck with me." I thought, huh, after all these years of trying to make this simple for people to understand, I blurt it out in a training and have to overhear it from this guy. And then later so I thought, okay, well, maybe there's something here. So I started to incorporate it and test it out, and people would nod their heads and they'd be like, it's Project Land. And then they would look at each other and go, it's Project Land. It's different. And I thought, okay, I have something here.
Isn't that beautiful? I love how you just happen to be walking in the hallway. And they just happen and I told you, life, I have learned that there's a synchronicity to life. Just we don't pay attention, but coming from this side and being able to communicate with others like yourself and people, I've seen it for the last several years within conversations. There is no such thing as, just haphazard stuff. There's a synchronicity. Look how what you said, and you're in your fog, but that awareness as it needed to be brought to your attention and in
Yes.
your fog, walking down the hallway, they just happened to say that, snapped you out of
Yes.
your fog, then create a process in your mind, and you began to implement what you said out of this fog. Isn't that's how life works? Now, yeah, sure, girl. That's the synchronicity of it all. So here you are aware now that this is it. This is it. Your assignment has been named. You have found
Yes.
your assignment. And I tell people, don't fall for the lie. that you have to just have a job and die.
Mm.
Don't fall for it is a lie. Learn to go through, love yourself enough to go through the journey, the dark time. That's what a journey is about. You go through the dark times and allow yourself, love yourself enough to go through it all the way through to find out your assignment. You are here for an assignment. You're not here on this planet to do a job. Don't fall for that one. Allow yourself. It is painful, but love yourself and trust yourself. You hear me, folks? Trust yourself enough to go through the journey and find your assignment. There's nothing like it because once you have found it, it is you. It's an extension of you and it will change and grow as you grow and change. It's a beautiful symbiotic relationship that you have with yourself and your assignment. It's the most beautiful thing on this planet. Your assignment is named, you got it. And you're now going to have to put the pieces together to make it a reality. And we know about all the processes of business that have to do to make that real. But I want to talk to you about you here because you are still here within this mix. You're going all over the place. You're traveling, you're getting all this stuff, but this woman is in there. She has put it together. She has proven to the boys that she can stand with the boys. She's proven to herself, most of all, that she can put this together. And as you are in that space, talk to me as to how you were managing you. But I want to then zero in as to how women were beginning to look at you while you were there as well.
So how I'm managing me, many days I don't feel like I'm managing me very well, that I need somebody else to manage me. Like, would somebody else tell me what to do today? Because I'm tired, you know? But I noticed because I was an athlete as a kid, I missed my working in my body. And I love to dance and I'm so happy when I dance and I move my body. So I found that I need to make time. I need to carve out time to work with my body, which helps my mind, it helps my sleep, it helps my focus, all of those things. And so I'm sitting here at my home in the Florida Keys, which everybody's like, "Oh, it's paradise." It's a weird place to live. It's a great place
Until a
to
couple of
visit.
those hurricanes shows up.
Right? I mean, hurricane season is it coming? And it's not my favorite time of year. So, like, for instance, for me, there's I don't have a lot of time, as many of us who are on a mission might feel. And I thought, well, I'll, go to the gym. Like I used to go to the gym. I don't love the gym. I would rather be outside. But hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So I start to looking into gyms. There are no gyms around me, like nothing, and definitely nothing that's very inspiring. So there's no like beautiful LA fitness with a theater room. I can watch movies and be on the treadmill at the same time. We don't have that here. It's just not a big enough place. So I said to a girlfriend of mine who is very connected and is so bubbly and wonderful, I said, I know this is going to sound crazy to you, but if I don't get my body moving again, I feel like I'm going to atrophy. Like I feel like I'm disintegrating. And I said, will you please be on the lookout for a personal trainer? And I had written to myself in my 20s, if I ever get a personal trainer, I will have arrived. Well, it turns out that this is actually it turns out I had hurt my back. And so like the atrophy part was I was really actually feeling very worried about. And you're starting to age. And as a woman aging, I mean, it's not the thing, it's a little pressure there. And so I said to her, will you please be on the lookout? And lo and behold, she happens to meet this woman who lives here but is from Buffalo, New York, and who so what that means is when she says, "I'm going to show up at your house with a plan and I'm going to kick your tail for an hour and you're going to wish you hadn't hired me," she will do it, right? And so for a couple of years now, this is what's been happening and I feel so much better in my body. I feel like this is the best money I ever spent to take care of me. And so For women, I would say it sounds crazy. It sounded crazy to me to get myself a personal trainer. I thought that sounds so extravagant. That sounds out of my reach. I'm a small town girl with a railroader father, with a mother who left her. Who am I to get a personal trainer? And I thought, but if I don't do this, my body is going to atrophy and I'm going to die early. And I don't want that either. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I look forward to the beatings because I mean, this woman is brilliant at what she does. She did it safely. She helped me come back. I feel so much more confident and better in my body. And I'm working now on my keynote speech that's the companion to my book. And I've heard from people when I'm on the stage, they asked, are you a dancer? Are you an athlete? And I'm like, what is it about my body and the way I move on this that makes people say that? And I thought, okay, I'm going to really try to leverage that, but I need to feel good in my body to be able to do that. And this woman has helped me tremendously. And I couldn't have a man. I needed a woman. I knew I needed a woman to do this.
Well, the woman will know all about your excuses and she'll push you beyond that and just
And I
break
exactly
you.
like I knew I would not be able to manipulate her in any way. I would not be able to
Yeah.
and so this is why I was like, girl, you my friend, you got to find me a woman. And she found me the perfect person. I couldn't have invented a better person to help me with
Yeah.
this
From
mission
New
of
York,
getting my health back.
from,
Yeah.
from, from, from the big city, girl, and they don't play over there, I live there. So here you are, man. Talk to us about the book piece. How did that manifest? Because first of all, Don, talk to me about the project. Because this is it. What are some of those principles uh, that you have seen when you show up at a organization? Those principles that you apply through the project development, project land. What is the pinnacles, if you will, of project land as far as the stages, the steps, and stuff like?
Well, the very core of the word project land is project, of course. And what I realized is that in most organizations, there's the line between the day job and projects is blurry. And so it gets very confusing for people. So the first thing we have to do in every session is explain what is a project really. And so there are three pieces of the definition of a project. First, it's temporary. There has to be a beginning and an end. So the word ongoing, I'm working on an ongoing project, is a red flag. That could be operations in disguise. So there has to be a clear start and end. It needs to end. That's first, temporary. The second ingredient is it's unique. A project has to be unique. In the history of the world, nobody has actually done this thing before. In this time, in this place, or with these people, something makes it one of a kind. And third, a project creates a product, service, or result. So if you have all three and you need all three, then you have a project, temporary, unique, and creates a product, service, or result. And so when people start to look at their work and the pile of work on their plates, they start to realize, many of them, well, gee, what is a project versus what is my day job operations, running the business, right? And the minute they start to say, this is a project, then they know they can use the beauty of project management, the art and the science of project management to do that well. Because the goal in operations is to run that crank, that makes the company money, or if they're in a nonprofit or governmental organization that is focused on the mission, better, faster, and cheaper. But on projects, you're creating something often with meaning, something that you could be proud to have made,
Yeah.
a product, service, or result. And it's a big difference. The worlds are different with different goals.
Helped us, Dawn, as to the synchronicity of the book because I love it. Life is if you look at life and allow yourself to see it, you can really enjoy the dance, if you will, the process, and that's what we are called to do: to learn to enjoy the process.
Mm.
And you just blurted out your assignment, the name for your assignment. So talk to me about meet the players of your project land. How did that come together as far as an extension of this woman who many years ago was sitting on a floor with her mom abandoning the family, and she is here doing and putting her first project together. Talk to me about that transition when you are now going to put this accumulation of knowledge, wisdom, all of these things that you've learned from the day that you were sitting on that floor putting those projects together to the book.
There are so many threads. There are so many threads that brought me to write that book. I loved books. So, yes, my memory is sitting on the floor organizing my storybooks. And then I lived in a small town, and my real mother introduced me to the library, which I thought was just a magical place. And it brought me to all these different worlds that I never thought I would be able to visit from my small town. And so I ended up loving books. They were really my friend. So since I didn't have a lot of friends, really books were really my friends. And later I was in Chicago at another one of these companies in front of a whole lot of people who were wide-eyed, and they had been taken over by an organization that knew that they needed to get these folks to be able to do projects. And this gentleman named Germain looked up at me and he said, "Where's the book?" And I said, "What?" He said, "Where's the book? I want all the stories that you tell in class in this book. I want all the lessons in a book on my desk." I say, "You do?" And he said, "Yes, I do." And that was probably 2010. And the book was just released in 2024. So he planted a seed that day. And I realized over the many years then of working with many different organizations around the world that most projects fail, statistically speaking. Most projects fail, which is such a shame. It just impacts so many people when projects fail, and never in a good way. And the root cause is the people. And one of the things I love to do is lift people up and help them feel good about their experience and help them feel confident that they can go through this wild world with different roles and rules that I call now Project Land, and do it and be confident and feel great about themselves in the end, and even through the trials and tribulations that they will go through on this project journey, because nobody in the history of the world has ever done this thing before in this time or in this place. And so it came together where I thought, I wonder if I can get a trademark on this thing. So I talked to an attorney and he said, "Well, you can get a trademark on it, but it needs to be everywhere. The word Project Land then needs to be a thing." I'm like, "Dude, I only live in Project Land. It's my life." And he said, "Okay, let's do this." So I talked to my friend Jerry Manis, who's been an author in nonfiction and in fiction. And I said, "Jerry, I think I got to do this book thing." And he's like, "Let's do it." And he was my cheerleader, my editor, my biggest push to make this happen. And he said, "Well, what do you want to really get people to know?" And I said, "I want people to know that people are both the root cause of project failure and success. It's the people, not the processes, not the tools. That's what most people talk about, but the people. And I want them to succeed in every role, not just the project manager, but the executive, the team member. And I want them to know about these things called stakeholders, who are the people outside your project team, who might love your project, hate your project, or be somewhere in between, to sort of make a Dr. Seuss style rhyme out of it. And it's really the people." And he said, "Well, how are you going to make it fun?" I said, "Well, animals." So I created 11 animal avatars, which a whole lot more are in the back that we had a lot of fun with, to help people understand how people operate, particularly when they're in a pressure cooker type situation, when they're under stress. And it's gotten a lot of great feedback, where it's even from very experienced project leaders who have said, "Oh, I recognize all these creatures from my world."
Yeah, I'm so glad I'm out of that world. I came out of there. All you guys have been listening to us, and I've kept on for a while because this has been such a pleasure talking with her. I know that I have quite a few companies that listen to my podcast because quite a few contact me and ask me if I would interview some of their folks and so forth. And so you guys, I got someone for you, man. If you guys are dealing with all kinds of projects and stuff like that you're thinking about, here is someone who's able to guide you. And the key, as she said, is for failure is people, and the ones for success, people. And when you have someone that has been in project land since the little child sitting on the floor to today, she has some experience and she has some knowledge. And so I want to challenge you guys to get in touch with her. We're going to put all the things, all the links together, buy the books, get in there. You business people, get the books, get some insight, begin to challenge your organization to put that project together that you guys have been putting aside and stuff like that. Here's someone that you can have access to, and she can walk with you and hold your hands and guide you. Dawn, this has been a really good one. Like I said, I hate to let you go. I've been having such a good time chatting with you. And thank you so much, Dawn. Seriously, thank you for coming and sharing yours and opening yourself to us here at President Life.
Thank you so much, Ken. It has been such a pleasure. I hope it's not our last conversation. I hope to speak with you soon about all things. And thank you so much for all the work that you're doing to make this world a better place.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.